In the annals of American ghost lore, few tales are as unsettling and bizarre as that of the Bell Witch haunting. This story, which unfolded in the 19th century in the rolling hills of Tennessee, has all the makings of a classic horror movie. A malevolent ghost, sinister interactions, and an atmosphere of dread that refuses to be shaken off. And though this is not a new story, having been written about extensively by early 20th century folklorists, it's one that still resonates today. It continues to send shivers down our spines and remind us of the eerie mysteries that lie just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. Let's dive deep into the chilling narrative of the Bell Witch haunting, a ghost story that not only changed how we think about ghosts, but also left an indelible mark on the American cultural landscape. Welcome to this house. Today we are exploring one of America's strangest ghost stories, the Bell Witch haunting. Make sure to stay until the end to learn about the witchery rituals that took place after the haunting. It all began in the year 1817, when John Bell, his wife Lucy, and their 5 children moved from Virginia to a remote farm in Adams, Tennessee. The location was isolated. Their nearest neighbors were at least a mile away. But this was part of the allure for John, who sought solitude as he had recently lost a son back in Virginia, and he hoped a change of scenery would help the family heal. Little did he know that they were bringing a piece of their past along with them. Their new home, a modest cabin made of logs, became a scene of unimaginable horrors. For the peace and quiet that John craved soon turned into a waking nightmare. Their first Christmas in their new home was marked by tragedy. John Bell's daughter Betsy, then just 17 years old, became violently ill. She suffered excruciating stomach pains, contorted in ways that suggested an unimaginable torment. Despite the family's best efforts, she passed away 2 days later on Christmas morning. While the townspeople suspected food poisoning, there was something about her symptoms and the suddenness of her passing that left a question mark hanging over the cause of her death. As the weeks turned into months, the family's ordeal took a turn for the worse. Strange occurrences began to plague them. Doors were slammed shut by unseen hands, beds were shaken violently, and disembodied voices whispered menacingly in the dead of night. These events were not merely frightening, they were targeted. They seemed to single out the patriarch of the family, John Bell. One particular interaction stands out as one of the most chilling instances during the haunting. John Bell was awoken from his sleep by the sound of someone sitting on the edge of his bed. As he lay there listening, he heard the distinct sound of the person sharpening a knife. This was not a sound that faded into the background. It was sharp, metallic, and deliberate. Whoever was doing this wanted him to hear it. Adding to the terror, John could feel the weight of the bedclothes being lifted, as if someone was getting into bed next to him. Then, as quickly as it started, it stopped. The sound ceased and the bed remained still. He never saw or heard the entity again, yet the memory of that night haunted him. The entity continued to make its presence felt through other means. At times it seemed playful, moving objects around the house, hiding clothing, or even shaking the very foundation of the cabin as if in some macabre game. But the line between playfulness and menace was often blurred. The ghost was unpredictable, capable of shifting from seemingly harmless pranks to terrifying displays of aggression in an instant. It was almost as if it enjoyed toying with its victims, testing their endurance and pushing them to the brink of madness. And as if these nightly horrors weren't enough, the ghost seemed to have a particular fondness for interacting with John Bell while he was awake. It would appear to him in various forms, sometimes as a disembodied head, at others as a shadowy figure lurking at the edge of his vision. These sightings were not mere glimpses. John Bell saw the ghost clearly enough to describe it in detail to those who would listen. Despite the terror that gripped the family, there were moments of lucidity. In the midst of this chaos, John Bell and his neighbors began to notice patterns in the ghost's behavior. They started calling the ghost the Bell Witch, a name that stuck because of the witch-like cackle the ghost would often let out. This wasn't your typical ghost. It didn't rattle chains or moan sadly. It was mean, spiteful, and relentless. It tormented the family day and night. The ghost would visit them during the day, causing bed covers to be pulled off their sleeping forms and buckets of water to fall on their heads. When they were awake, the ghost would torment them by pinching, scratching, and even biting. And as night fell, it would hold seances and use the family's dead as puppets. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a full-blown invasion of their home, their minds, and their souls. For more than a decade, the Bells lived in this nightmarish state. The constant fear and exhaustion took a toll on their mental and physical health. And as the ghost continued to escalate its attacks, the family found themselves on the edge of a precipice. But why? What had they done to incur the wrath of this relentless spirit? The answer, as is often the case with hauntings, lay in the past. According to local lore, the ghost was the spirit of a woman named Kate Batts. She had been a servant in John Bell's family back in Virginia. But when they moved to Tennessee, they brought Kate's spirit along with them, unknowingly. Upon their arrival in Tennessee, the ghost started taunting John Bell, calling him a vile name that was synonymous with betrayal and deceit in the South. The ghost also revealed secrets about his deceased wife and children, things only the ghost and John Bell's wife would know. After taunting him for several months, the ghost of Kate made a shocking accusation. She claimed that John Bell had poisoned his wife and children and buried them in the garden, saying, "I am the spirit of Kate. You murdered your own wife and children and buried them in the garden, and now I am come to take my revenge." After hearing this, John Bell became convinced that the ghost was telling the truth. However, it seemed that the ghost wasn't finished with her revelations. She went on to accuse John Bell of killing a Native American named Peter, who had been part of his family's enslaved workforce. Peter, it seemed, had been killed not by accident, but by poison, and his body was buried under the cabin floorboards. As if this weren't enough, the ghost of Kate dropped another bombshell. She accused John Bell of killing his father-in-law in order to inherit his property. John Bell was horrified. These revelations shook him to his core. He had never poisoned anyone, nor had he ever killed Peter or his father-in-law. But as the ghost continued to taunt him, he began to doubt himself. Years passed, and the ghost's accusations continued to hang over him like a millstone. Even after his death in 1820, the ghost continued to haunt his family and the people who knew him, whispering his supposed crimes in their ears and shaking their homes with her ghostly presence. But why? What was the ghost's endgame? What did she want from John Bell and his family? The answer, as is often the case with hauntings, is not a simple one. Perhaps the ghost was simply seeking retribution, wanting to make John Bell suffer for his supposed crimes. Or maybe she was trying to warn him, trying to convince him to confess his sins before it was too late. Whatever her motivation, the haunting continued for decades, leaving those who experienced it forever changed. With time, the story of the Bell Witch became a local legend, a cautionary tale of what could happen when the veil between the living and the dead grew thin. It became a story that was told and retold, each retelling adding another layer to the mystery. So, what happened to the Bells? And how did the haunting finally come to an end? We may never know for sure, but there are theories. Some say that the ghost eventually moved on, finding peace after years of torment. Others claim that the family was cursed, and the haunting continues to this day. What we do know is that the story of the Bell Witch has had a lasting impact on popular culture. From books to films, the Bell Witch haunting has inspired countless works of art. And every October, tourists flock to Adams, Tennessee, hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghost for themselves. But whether the Bell Witch is real or merely a figment of our collective imagination, her story serves as a reminder of the strange and mysterious world we inhabit. A world where the line between the living and the dead is often blurrier than we care to admit. The Bell Witch haunting is more than just a ghost story. It's a reflection of our deepest fears and our fascination with the unknown. It's a story that has captured the human imagination for centuries and will continue to do so for many years to come. What are your thoughts on the Bell Witch haunting? Do you believe that the ghost of Kate is real? Or is there another explanation for these events? Let me know in the comments below.